Hello tanks and tankheads, and welcome to another supporter spotlight video. Today we're going to do the full wax, 2 World of Tanks replays and some warships action, and we're actually going to kick off with this game from Zebedee in the heavy tank number 6, which you don't see around very often. In theory it's a nice machine, it's a good one for the collectors because it's a historically set up Tiger tank and it's at tier 6. But it doesn't get premium matchmaking, which is probably the biggest issue with it. It also, of course, can see just the regular tier 6 Japanese heavies, the OIs, which are a big problem for everything of their own tier. They're even a problem for some of the higher tier machines that they'll see. So, yeah, it's probably just a combination of those two why you don't see these around that much. And honestly, the OIs and the OI experimentals make the mid-tiers a lot less fun than they used to be. It really is luck of the draw as to where the matchmaking puts you up against any. And I've especially been finding this on NA recently when I've been trying to do my crew dailies in the Churchill 3. And if there aren't any OIs or OI experimentals, then okay. It might be an okay game. If there are, however, well, the Churchill 3, it just gets pens through the turret so easily. I mean, that always was the case, but when you've got a machine that can just roll up, hit you through the turret for almost half your health, and then pull back, and then do the same thing however many seconds later, yeah, the number of times I've just been 2-shotted or 3-shotted by them, it kind of takes the fun out of things, you know? However, Zebedee's been really lucky in that there are no other Japanese heavies on either team. In fact, technically this isn't even a Japanese heavy, it is of course a Tiger, a German heavy. And if you're not aware, this is a machine, and it's actually historical, this is a machine that Japan bought and tried to ship over to the home islands, which, as you can imagine, from Germany to Japan is a very, very long trip. But the ship, or was it even a submarine? I can't remember, but that was carrying it basically got sank or lost along the way. So he's already started off with a high roll against that Chiri, because this I think is 220 average damage on this gun, and if his teammates just keep lighting up these things on the top of the hill, he should be able to do a bit more damage. On the side of the T-29, I mean, that's not known for its strong side armour. It really does come down to RNG when you're trying to shoot at this kind of range. I mean, this is kind of 500 metres plus, so it's luck of the draw if you actually are going to hit and pen or not. But he's getting lucky more often than not. I mean, he's aiming well enough, and that's where it just comes down to the RNG. And, oh, no, well, that T-29 is now a one-shot. Maybe he can get the kill. He clearly wants it. And there we go. First kill, not bad. Almost 1,000 damage done now as well. Side of the E2, and another kill, so that was another one in very rapid succession. And his teammates are actually doing a decent job lighting up these guys, which is nice, because sometimes you will get... did I say there was no... Wow, I just noticed that there is actually an OI experimental platoon on this. Well noticed, me. Anyway, yeah, his... Wow. Wow, I'm paying attention today. His teammates are doing a good job, though. I mean, they're not just passively sitting there. They are actually trying to spot. And given that there is artillery in play, and this is Prokhorovka, that makes all the difference. Whether you're just being passive and sitting back and not actually... hello, there's one of the arties, speaking of arty. If you're just not doing anything, then it makes it easier for an enemy team to just pick you apart. But in this case... Kill number 3. There we go. Why that M44 was on the hill, I do not know. That one is a bit of a mystery. So they actually look like they're doing alright so far. They are only just ahead on tanks, but they do seem to have a lot more map control right now. They've got the hill, and there's the other arty who's also on the hill. What? They weren't even platooned. That's bizarre. Now we've got a Cromwell that's running down to the sea line, maybe hoping to find an arty on the little island, or maybe just get shot up at the stuff that's on the flank of the hill. And he does actually get one kill, but he's now got a Tiger P chasing after him. Zebedee, meanwhile, knows that there's at least a couple of things in the middle, and anything that isn't spotted is likely to be on the 1-2 line. Well, having said that, there's the Skoda T24, or Skoda rather. So he sets up for the shot there. That's just a sitting duck, basically. Gets another kill. Very nice. Has taken a hit in the meantime, though. And for that amount of damage, well, that's maybe a Cromwell? Or possibly the Panther, actually. For that level of damage with the long 75mm gun. The Achilles then takes this opportunity to pop up over the ridge, which is not the best move in an Achilles, because that thing's got horrible gun depression, and it can't really reverse very quickly. So this is giving Sebedi all the time in the world to, there we go, just finish him off. Unfortunately, however, well, he got set on fire and his auto fire extinguisher kicked in, so that wasn't really an issue. But he then got hit in the ammo rack after having used his repair kit. So now he's got something of a longer reload, which is going to be a bit of a pain. However, it's just the last couple of enemy tanks at this point. There really isn't a lot left alive, so he just needs to be patient and get a kill shot, basically. So there's the Panther. The T21, we don't know where he is. The T37, we don't know where he is either. And as it turns out, the T21 has been AFK the entire game. Didn't even bother. Like, it's not that his client... Well, if he hadn't loaded in to begin with, you can tell. But it might be that he loaded in and then his client crashed or whatever. But at this point, he would have loaded back in, surely. So this is somebody that just is AFKing or botting their way through. Or possibly they just got called away from the computer at the start of a match, if you're going to be charitable. But for the T21, I'm more inclined to say, yeah, they probably just don't like it and they're just trying to AFK their way through it. So that was an ace tank for Sebedi, along with a high caliber. He did a really nice amount of damage, but unfortunately the top gun was denied. If you look at the team list, though, you can see that he was actually able to do really quite well there. Over 3,000 damage done with those 5 kills, with a net result of 1,200 base XP. Much better than most of his team, and because, of course, he's in a premium tank, and he didn't really fire any premium shells, I don't think. His ammo costs were pretty low there. 60,000 profit, so not bad for just over 6 minutes work. Next up, we have Island Man, a very familiar name, in the 5100. And this is going to be something of a textbook game in the 5100. It's not an easy tank to play, because a lot of people... I mean, you should, by the time you've gotten through tiers 5 to 7 of the French heavies, got it in your head that they're not typical heavy tanks. And then tier 8 comes along and suddenly there's an autoloader in the mix as well. And I struggled for a long time to get the hang of the 5100, because it's not at all like really any of the other tier 8 heavies. So what you're going to see here is actually a pretty good example of how you should play this thing. And he does actually show fairly good awareness through this game as well. And that's probably the key. Well, with one tanks generally, you know, being aware of what's going on around you is really important. But in some vehicles, especially vehicles like this, especially auto-loaders, you have to be that much more aware. And another thing you also have to have, especially in the French auto-loaders with those long reload times, is a plan of escape. You never want to get yourself into a situation where you just can't retreat to reload, because once your clip is gone, that's it. For the better part of a minute, you're just a sitting duck. You're helpless. So you always, if at all possible, want to avoid pushing forward too far or trying to get to an aggressive position that, you know, in something like an IS-3 would be fine. But if people are being smart, they're counting the shots that you're firing, then they are just going to wait till you're out and then rush you. And you can't do a blessed thing about it. Now, talking of being aggressive, he actually is here. He's looked at the minimap, he knows what's around, and he's actually trying to see if he can get some early sneaky shots. Unfortunately, the element of surprise is slightly ruined, because he does get one into that TVP, but takes one in return, and his first shot just missed entirely. So they know he's here now, and he has to be careful, because this thing it's squashy. You're basically, a lot of the time, trading your health in order to do damage. And that's what he did there, and he came out better on the, you know, damage side of the equation. But what you really want to be able to do is avoid that entirely and actually get the drop on people, get people when they're distracted. Now he actually tries to help this SDA-1 against the enemy 5100, knowing that this guy has maybe got 1 or 2 shells left at most. Does get a hit in, but this has now left him slightly vulnerable, and it's only really the fact that the IS-3 is completely ignoring him that lets him just get away without taking any damage. However, there's a TVP lurking even around the corner as well, so he's got to be careful. So he's withdrawn, and having said, you know, he was aggressive. He was aggressive in a way that let him then pull back to actually reload, and he's over halfway now with his reload, and he hasn't taken any additional damage. So out of the shells he's fired, I mean, he's taken 1 hit for 245, but he's done over 1100, so that was a fairly good first clip. And actually, when he had those 2 shots, personally, I probably would have gone like, okay, I've only got 2 left, I'm going to pull back and actually reload at this point. And no, he chose to go forward and actually got a bit of additional damage out of it. Now, he wasn't able to save that IS-6 there, was that? Yes. But he was able to at least utilise it to his advantage and use the distraction of his allies actually going for that guy. Or of his enemies going for that guy, rather. And again, if you can get the drop on people, it is a very, very powerful machine. Because it's that burst potential that will kill people. Now he had a choice of targets there. He could have gone for the Jagdpanther 2 or the IS-3. Went for the IS-3, and that was a nice final shell. Again, reloading in relative safety. And actually, by this stage, I mean, we're not even at the 4-minute mark. Most of each team is dead. And we're already basically at the end game, even though we've only just hit 11 minutes on this match. So, when people say autoloaders get really powerful in the late game can come very quickly in World of Tanks sometimes, as is the case here. And this is actually now only his 3rd clip of shells, and already the team is in, both teams are in this state. This is very, very close. So gets 1 into the unwary Type 58, and he's actually now come up behind a TVP, and this is the point where he's just going to trade health. Manages to get the guy, and again, he knows he's going to take the hit. Even a tier 6 medium can easily pen in, but an extra 2 kills, there we go. Easy peasy. All that's left now is artillery and a KV-3, and, well, this is good discipline. I would have started reloading the clip, but he held on to that shell, maybe in the anticipation of firing at an artillery, and lo and behold, an artillery appeared for him to fire at. So I would have been just sat there cursing myself because I'd have started reloading already. So sometimes it pays off to hang on to that final 1 or 2 shells. But on the other hand, sometimes the correct call is, if you've only got 1 or 2 shells left, to actually then withdraw and reload if it's safe to do so. So it's one of those things where it just comes down to judgment. And in this case, you know, my judgment calls to reload at various times would have been the wrong thing to do. But there are other times when it would have been the right thing to do. So, the KV-3, as we can see, is being reset, and the M44, if you'll notice in the chat, is also offering Iron Man a top gun. And maybe he doesn't need it, but no, he got unlucky with that first shell bouncing on the side of the KV-3. If it hadn't, that would have been his top gun right there. So, if the M44 is genuine, this is an opportunity to hunt this last guy down, and he's by far the fastest of the remaining tanks. I mean, the Mutz is pretty fast, but he's actually in the factory floor area. So if anyone's going to get this M44, if he genuinely is where he says he is, then it's going to be Iron Man's kill. Although, having said that, maybe it's a trap. Maybe the M44 is going to wait for him and blap him in the face. And with only 648 health, there's every chance he could actually kill Island Man. So it just remains to be seen. Oh, well, there he is, and bam. So we'll never know if that was a trap or not, because Island Man managed to get the shot off first. Did get the top gun. I mean, it could have been genuine, in which case, okay, it was nice of the guy, I suppose, but still, anyway, top gun, high caliber, another ace mastery, and a very nice result indeed. And you'll be able to see he's, again, top of the team. Not actually... well, near the top of the team, actually. It's the Panzer 58 that managed to get top place, presumably with spotting and assistance damage. But Iron Man a close second, and he did have by far the most damage. So that's the power of a 5100 right there. And that was actually a really good example of how to play a 5100 and be aggressive at the right times, but always have a plan of escape. And so we come to warships. And actually this has some relation to my previous warships replay that I put up, the Anshan game, because that featured this map, Northern Lights, it featured Andy CX, and it featured an Atlanta. However, this time Andy himself is the star of the show, it's his replay after all, and we're going to get to see an Atlanta being played in a rather more competent fashion than the one that we saw in that Anshan game, where it was basically somebody who, I don't even quite know how to describe it, but they decided to get blindly fixated on me, and despite just doing obviously terrible things, they just kept doing them anyway because they just got so fixated on one target and drove forwards towards a bunch of enemy ships. And, well, you can guess exactly how that went. So this is decent matchmaking for Andy. It's a tier 8 game, and as long as he's careful, the Atlanta, I mean, it's a tricky ship to play. It's not the easiest ship in the world. You've got destroyer-class armaments. You've got a bunch of these very quick-turning, very fast-firing 127mm guns with, frankly, terrible range. The Anshan that I was playing in that previous replay actually has a better base range with bigger guns, 130mm versus the 127mm on this. So, yeah, the range on this is terrible. I think that's probably people's main complaint with this ship. It does not have a good range. But if you get a chance to use it in certain ways, it can be quite powerful. And I think in some ways it's a very damning word when you can, the best you can say about a ship is, well, it's circumstantial. That's definitely true of the Atlanta. In certain circumstances it can do really well. In other circumstances, I mean, if you get Ocean for instance, you are absolutely out of luck. Now, he's gotten a couple of hits on that Mayhan that was trying to hide behind the island, but he's got no idea where the guy is now. But this is one of those circumstances where the nature of the guns on this thing, it's quite handy because it's got a very high shell trajectory. So you can loop shells over bits of terrain that other cruisers would really struggle with from actually quite short range. I mean, there are lots of ships, you know, battleships, cruisers, where you can get them, get the shells over even fairly substantial bits of terrain if you are far back enough so that the maximum point of the trajectory, you know, just goes over the terrain. But with the Atlanta, you can be sat practically next to an island and fire over it. The downside of that is, of course, it means those shells have a very long travel time. But because you fire so quickly, it's not like you're paying a particularly big penalty if you completely flub up, if you completely mess up a salvo. And he kind of does against this New Mexico. He completely misjudges how fast this guy is going. This New Mexico who has just basically crawled to a halt. But it doesn't matter. You can just readjust and fire another salvo, like 5 seconds later or whatever the reload is. I mean, it's pretty damn fast. In fact, I think it's even less than 5 seconds. Especially because it's destroyer class armament if you have BFT and AFT. And I think he does have both on this captain. You almost need, for the Atlanta captain, a separate captain. The Atlanta... Rod. The Atlanta captain, yeah. You know what I mean. Wow, it's been that kind of a day. It really has. In fact, it's been that kind of a 2 days, really. Anyway, so... yeah, what he's trying for here is just to set some fires. I mean, that really is the goal of any cruiser captain facing battleships a lot of the time. But even against other cruisers, unless even you are fairly close range and you can get a flatter trajectory against cruiser hulls, you're probably still going to want to be mostly firing HE. Now, he's somehow... I mean, look at this, by the way. He's wedged in tight against this island. He's able to fire over regardless. But he managed to miss almost all of those New Mexico shots, unfortunately. And there was just something about the New Mexico's motion that was throwing him off there. But it's fine. Believe me, I mean, he's going to do a lot more than this by the end of this game. I wouldn't be showing you this if all he'd done was 5,000 damage. Now, meanwhile, he spots that the Mayhan's making a move, and actually he probably could have spotted this a bit sooner, but somebody tags the Mayhan for focus, or uses the focus fire chat command thing, and that makes Andy notice, and well, you saw what happened. If you get a destroyer that's going in a straight line like that at relatively close range, then just pow pow pow, dead. This thing, if it gets a chance to eat destroyers, will eat destroyers in very rapid succession. But of course, it's getting a destroyer captain that's distracted or unwary or whatever that is the trick. I can only apologise for the frame rate, by the way. It was all over the place when I was watching this, even just watching it as opposed to recording it. And Warships is still at that stage. I mean, this is, I think, from a couple of patches ago, but a couple of the smaller patches ago, so it's like 0.5.4, and at the moment we're at 0.5.4.2. Warships, even when playing it, the frame rate just goes up and down like a yo-yo. And you can see, particularly in this replay, it was going from like 20 FPS to 70 FPS at various points. So there's nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. Even on people with better PCs than mine, you'll notice the frame rate is a little bit variable. But at some point, a more powerful PC would be fairly useful. I think especially the processor. With the last round of upgrades I did with my PC, I went with an i5 instead of an i7. And especially doing video recording, video processing, you want all the oomph that you can get. So that's an incoming wave of torpedoes, but that's fine. He's actually he's not really in any danger of those. I mean, the island eats one and the rest all just sail harmlessly past, and meanwhile he just gives the carrier a friendly nudge. And that's almost a thing you have to be wary of with the Atlanta, is that you can get so focused on that pew 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 that you have to occasionally remember to take stock of what's going on around you, because you can absolutely tunnel vision like the Atlanta in the previous game, except I mean, you've got to really try. You've got to really try to do it as much as that guy did it. And it got to the point where he was sailing in a straight line and ignoring the fact that his health bar was going down. If it gets to the point when your health bar is disappearing and you're still tunnel visioning that hard, then well done. So another target is hove into view, but this is towards the edge of his range. He's just actually about to sail outside, and he hasn't managed to set any fires on that guy, it doesn't look like. And that's the disadvantage of trying to get fires with this. It's because it's that destroyer caliber armament, the actual fire chance is pretty low. It's something like 5% per shell. And if you get unlucky, you can fire quite a lot of shells and not get many fires. I actually had this experience sorry, I actually had this experience myself with I think facing a Tirpitz or something. I was just dodging around an island for minutes and minutes and pelting the guy with in excess of 100 shots just on this one ship. I got one fire in that time, so it was just the RNG was not with me, and because I wasn't getting that fire damage, I unfortunately ended up just eventually running out of health, because there wasn't anybody else nearby that could help me. Because the rest of my team was, well, the less said about them, the better. But yeah, so in terms of setting fires, I mean, it is in the hands of RNGers, and if you've only got a small fire chance per shell, you can end up with a situation where you fire a lot of shots and don't get really many or any fires. I think in my case, though, I was just quite exceptionally unlucky. So he's now trying to get the kill on this low-health Kutuzov. And, well, somebody else does, but he gets a little more damage out of it. And you can see there, like, the number of shots he's fired, I don't even know, in the hundreds probably. But he's also now got 123 hits, and his damage has gone up a bit. But if it was still this, I probably wouldn't be showing you this. This is actually one of the better games Andy's ever had in this machine. So we're skipping ahead again, and they're on the offensive now, down through the B cap point. They've got 2 cap points that they've capped and are holding, and they're about to take this third one, even though it's pretty even on numbers. And there we go, Andy gets a second kill, because he got that destroyer earlier on, and he's been firing at a few targets since then, but that was quite nice. Even though they're very close on ships, because they've had the cap points advantage all the way along, They are comfortably in the lead, and it is still possible to lose from this kind of scenario if you end up losing all your ships. And I've seen it happen. You'll be like 300 or 400 points ahead, and then just everybody dies. It's possible. But, and oh, incoming fire, this might hurt. But in this case, oh no, there we go. They all missed. In this case, it looks like it's basically in the bag. But it doesn't do to get complacent, even so. So there's multiple things firing at this Tirpitz, but of all the nearby ships, I mean, it's Andy and Miyoko and Matsuki, and there's also, is that Colorado, I think, further back? Andy's going to be the obvious attractive target, and ooh, that's about a third of his health gone right there. That's unfortunate. He is, however, getting a lot luckier against this Tirpitz in terms of fires than I was in the engagement I was talking about. So if he can just set the guy on fire again, because that fire's just gone out, but there's a very good chance he can walk away the victory in this engagement. And actually, I don't think he set a fire there. That must have been the Miyoko that set a fire. The Matsuki's also trying to close for the kill, using the distraction of Andy and Andy's many salvos to try and get in closer for a torpedo drop. But he'll be dropping on a target that's moving away from him. So not the easiest drop to make, but it doesn't look like the Tirpitz is varying course too much, and that makes Andy's life easier as well, because he can just sit here in artillery view and pound away at this guy. Look at the counter up till now, by the way, the shell counter. He's had 128 hits up till now, and then you look at the hits he's had against this Tirpitz alone. He's more than doubled the number of hits just against this one target, and it's cost him in terms of health, but this Tirpitz is going down. There we go, 160 hits. So he's now looking fairly low health, but I think it was worth it. He also got a lot of damage out of that, and not just the 48,000 we can see on the clock, but fire damage as well, of course. And as you can see, they actually ended up winning on points. Cap points win games in warships. Sometimes people don't seem to realise that, but it's really important to make sure you've got that cap control. But that damage done, and the capping he participated in, and even got some air kills there, 17 air kills. The Atlanta's AA suite isn't bad. That was more than enough to put him well at the head of the team, with over 2,000 base XP. So there we go, 50,000 damage by HE, in fact. The damage counter was wrong, plus another nearly 30,000 from the fires. The Atlanta's also got reasonably usable even torpedoes, but we didn't really get to see those in action there. But for all his efforts, 400,000 profit, that's not bad. I wouldn't complain about that. I certainly wouldn't complain about it in something like the Tirpitz. So it is possible, as you can see, to do well in the Atlanta, but you have to be playing well, and you have to not drive forwards and tunnel vision like an idiot. It does help. So there we go. That's today's brace of supporter replays, and I hope you've enjoyed them. And if you have, you can leave any comments below. You can hit the like button. You can sub to my channel if you aren't already. And as always, stay tuned for more.